Time's up, I thought as Ashley laughed so loud it sliced through the wine bar's soft jazz. She leaned into Brandon Hale, fingertips skating his forearm, wedding ring flashing in the candlelight. Even in the dim, I could see the way she looked at him. "You're awful," she giggled. "I can't believe you said that about Henderson's presentation." Brandon flashed perfect teeth. "I call it like I see it. Some people pretend everything's sunshine to keep the peace." The jab was for me. I kept my face still and took a slow sip of Cabernet. Years with Ashley taught me that reacting only fueled her. "That's what I love about you," she purred in that husky voice she used to save for me. "No filters. No eggshells." "Life's too short," Brandon said, eyes pinned to her mouth. "Most guys play it safe and never take what they want." My grip tightened on the glass. "I'm a financial advisor. Reading people is my job." Brandon wasn't hiding a thing. Neither was Ashley. "Speaking of taking what you want," she said, loud enough for neighboring tables. "If I'd met you before my husband, I never would have married him." Conversation stalled. A cold weight settled in my stomach. Not shock, recognition. She'd been building to this. Brandon smirked at me, then let his gaze slide to her cleavage. Lucky for me, some men don't know how to hold what they have. And I doubt he'd bother us. 3 seconds of silence. Then my fist met his jaw. The crack echoed. His chair flipped, and he hit the floor clutching his face. Ashley's glass shattered. "What is wrong with you?" she shrieked, mascara threatening to run. I flexed my hand. First punch of my life, and it felt clean. Brandon staggered up, rage and embarrassment twisting his face. "You crazy son of a..." "Finish it," I said, quiet but final. Something in my tone made him back up. The bench press bragger suddenly looked unsure. "If you're unhappy, the door's right there. You jealous, entitled loser," Ashley shouted, soaking up the stairs. "I was talking to a friend, and you turned it into caveman theater." I looked at her, really looked. The woman I married 7 years ago had warmth and a laugh I chased. The one yelling now was a stranger wearing her face. "Are you even listening? Say something. Defend yourself." I set 3 20s by the broken glass. Cover the tab, cover the mess. Practical to the end. Brandon glared, nursing his jaw. "This isn't over, Reed." "It's not," I said, almost smiling. I walked for the exit. Behind me, Ashley's voice climbed. "Don't you dare walk away from me, Jason." Phones were out. Whispering spread. A manager asked her to lower her voice. "I'll disturb whoever I want," she snapped. "My husband just attacked someone." I paused at the door. She stood center stage, exactly where she wanted to be. Brandon tried to smooth his shirt, but the bruise was already blooming, and everyone had seen him fall. "Psycho," he muttered. I stepped into the November air, cold, clean, like a reset. I could still hear Ashley through the glass, but the words didn't matter anymore. For the first time in years, I smiled as I walked to my car. Back at our apartment, the place felt different. Not empty. Ashley wouldn't be home for hours, if at all, but lighter, like someone had finally opened a window. I walked through the apartment with new eyes. Not a home, a stage where I'd played the same part too long. In the bedroom, I pulled down the leather duffel from our Italy honeymoon. The one Ashley said looked too masculine. Now it felt perfect. I packed like a soldier. 2 weeks of clothes, laptop, documents, the watch Dad gave me at graduation. I left the wedding gifts, the framed smiles, 7 years of props for a role that wasn't me. Each choice, take or leave, felt like picking who I really was beneath the agreeable husband. The pricey suits Ashley chose stayed on the hangers. The jeans she mocked as suburban dadwear. In the bag. In the bathroom, I grabbed only essentials. Electric razor, and the cologne I wore before Ashley upgraded me to something more sophisticated. The mirror showed a man I barely recognized, straighter shoulders, steel around the eyes. A text pinged. "Where are you?" Delete. At my desk, her abstract wallpaper glared while I opened my secure folder. Bank statements, investment accounts, business files, stuff Ashley never bothered to learn. She'd married me for safe and steady, assuming I'd never outshine her. She never asked how successful her boring husband had become. Another ping. Brandon's jaw might be broken. "I'm at the ER. We need to talk." I actually laughed. She was in the emergency room with another man, and somehow I was the problem. I scrolled to a number I hadn't called in months. Hannah picked up on the second ring. "Jason, it's almost midnight. What's wrong?" "Nothing. For once, everything's right." She sighed. "Want to try that again?" I need a favor tomorrow. Important. I opened a file I'd been building too long. Security clips, transaction trails, message logs. The paper trail of a man who'd learned not to trust. Remember what you used to say about Ashley? Which part? She asked. There were a few. That she'd pushed too far and I'd have to decide what kind of man I am. I told her, calm and factual, about the wine bar, the performance, the punch. Silence stretched, then, Jesus, you okay? Better than I've been in years. I minimized the files. I need your help with a delivery. What kind of delivery? I looked around the office. Our wedding photo with her dazzling grin and my stunned one. Degrees she never read. A life I built while she chipped at it. The kind that changes everything, I said, and laid out the plan. Hannah showed up at 8 a.m. with 2 coffees and the face of someone who didn't sleep. She found me in the kitchen, awake and steady. You look terrible, she lied, settling on a bar stool. Thanks for coming, I said, taking the cup. I know it's weird. Weird doesn't cover it. She studied me, then saw it, the quiet intensity that used to live in Dad's eyes. When you called, I thought maybe you'd snapped. Maybe I have. She shook her head. Snapping is name calling, begging, or drinking yourself stupid. This. She motioned to the neat apartment and the stack of labeled documents. This is planning. I actually smiled, and this time it reached my eyes. You always know me better than anyone, I told Hannah, which is why you probably think I'm about to ask for something that would make Mom roll in her grave. Funny thing, I said, pulling a thick manila envelope from the drawer. I think Mom would approve. She never liked Ashley, remember? She called her that girl acting in a play where everyone else forgot their lines. Hannah nearly choked on her coffee. She did not. Word for word. Christmas 2019. You were in the kitchen arguing politics with Dad. Her face softened, little memories clicking into place. What's in the envelope? Everything she needs to understand her new situation. I handed it over. Hannah eased it open. Legal docs, statements, a timeline with photos. How long have you been building this? 2, maybe 3 years, I said, sitting across from her. I kept hoping I wouldn't need it. The images were casually brutal. Ashley flirting with waiters, contractors, even the mailman. Screenshots she later deleted. Bank statements for dinners I never attended and hotel nights that were supposedly girls' trips. She doesn't know your real assets, Hannah said, scanning the portfolio and business holdings. She knows I'm comfortable. She doesn't know I'm wealthy. No pride in it, just fact. She married the safe advisor, never asked what kind. Hannah studied me, really looked. The agreeable guy who nodded through public jabs was gone. In his place was the kid who used to blueprint Lego castles and explain how every piece locked the structure. What do you need? Deliver that envelope to our condo at exactly 9 a.m. tomorrow. Ashley will be hungover, still in last night's dress, expecting apologies. I tapped my phone and showed her a video. Instead, she's going to learn her boring husband was paying attention. Hannah watched the opening seconds, my face calm, voice steady, facts lined up like dominoes. Her stomach dropped. I could see it. You're really doing this. I am. You're sure? Once it starts. No rewind, I said, standing at the window. 7 years, and Ashley had never set foot in this investment place. Never asked about my work beyond whether the paycheck cleared. She built her world on assumptions about me. Dad's chess rule, I added without turning. It's not the pieces you take, it's the moves they don't see. Hannah nodded. Ashley's been playing checkers, and I've been playing chess. In 7 years, I'd never gone more than an hour without replying to Ashley. That night, my silence said everything. But she was too drunk and too proud to hear it. From the timestamps I pulled later, she drove home rehearsing the speech, my jealousy, my violence, anger management, couples therapy, how she was the victim, not the woman I flirting with Brandon in public. By the time she reached our brownstone, she'd convinced herself I'd be waiting up with flowers and apologies. That's who I'd trained her to expect. Safe, predictable, the man who smoothed every conflict. The porch light was on. The rest of the house, dark. No anxious husband in the hall, no defensive speech from the sofa. Just the grandfather clock chewing through the early hours. Our bed was untouched, my nightstand cleared. Closet gaps where my favorite shirts hung, toiletries gone, the too masculine, honeymoon duffel missing. She stumbled to the kitchen, opened wine, and started calling. Straight to voicemail. Again. Again. On the fourth try she left a message. This is ridiculous. Come home. Bring an apology for that stunt at the bar. The next voicemails dropped the politeness. I'm not chasing you. You embarrassed me. You embarrassed yourself. You probably gave Brandon grounds to press charges. Face it instead of hiding. By 4 a.m., she'd left 8 angry voicemails and drained half the bottle. The house felt too quiet, too big. Anger couldn't fill the vacuum. She passed out on the couch in her wrinkled dress, mascara smeared, wedding ring catching the first light. At 9:03 a.m., the doorbell sliced through her hangover. Our door cam shows her bolt upright, then stagger to the entry as the bell rang again with firm, professional knocking. Delivery for Ashley Reed. A woman in a crisp suit called, manila envelope in hand. Come back later, Ashley croaked. I was instructed to deliver at 9 a.m. sharp. It's urgent. Ashley cracked the door, trying to shield the chaos. Yes, I'm Ashley. I'll need ID, ma'am. This is a legal document delivery. From the delivery log and our foyer cam, 9 a.m. Hit like a metronome. Ashley's hands shook as she dug out her license. The courier checked it, noted her clipboard, slid over an e-pad. Sign here. The manila envelope felt heavy, my wife's name printed in block caps. Beneath it, personal and confidential. Open immediately. Who sent this? Ashley asked, but the courier was already heading to the car. She tried to stall, coffee, aspirin, maybe a shower, but kept glancing at the envelope on the entry table. In the chrome of the coffee maker she caught a wreck, smeared makeup, matted hair, wine stains. Her phone buzzed. Brandon, jaw feels better. Can't believe your husband sucker punched me. You okay? Brunch to talk next steps? The concern read like a performance. Hello. She gave in, ripped the seal, dumped the contents, papers sliding across the coffee table, and dropped her mug. Ceramic and caffeine exploded on hardwood. A small black USB sat among financial statements and legal forms, a note clipped to it. Ashley, everything you need to understand your new reality is on this drive. Plug it into the TV. Watch it all. We'll talk after. Jay? The tone was cool, businesslike. Not the man she'd choreographed for 7 years. She flipped through the documents, accounts she didn't recognize, legal language too dense for a hangover, and a dated timeline with photos. Ashley flirting with the kitchen contractor last spring, getting too close to her trainer, sessions I paid for, laughing with the sommelier while I waited in the car. None of it voyeuristic, all of it documentary, each image harmless alone, damning in sequence. Hands unsteady, she slid the USB into the TV. A simple menu. For Ashley, play me. She hit play. My face filled the screen, steady eyes, even voice she'd never heard. Hello, Ashley. If you're watching this, you've received the documents explaining your new situation. This isn't revenge. It's the natural consequence of choices you made. Cut to footage from last night, the wine bar from an angle that caught everything. Her hand on Brandon's arm, the contempt in her glance, the line about never marrying me. Then other nights, public digs, my quiet smiles. For 3 years, my voice continued over the montage. I documented your behavior, not from paranoia, but to learn who you are when you're not asking me for something. Her mouth went dry. The room finally matched the silence I'd given her. 3 years. That's how long I'd been watching, recording, and cataloging Ashley's worst moments, while she assumed I was too passive to notice or too soft to care. On her TV, the footage shifted to scenes she wouldn't remember. Me mounting tiny security cameras, nudging angles a few degrees, reviewing clips on my laptop while she slept down the hall. The steadiness of it, the method, read cold on screen, and that was the point. I wanted her to see that I hadn't stumbled into clarity. I'd built it. I want to show you something else, I said on the video, and the screen filled with financials. These are my actual assets, Ashley. The investments you never asked about. The business ventures you waved off as boring. The inheritance you decided was modest. Numbers took over the frame. Account balances, equities and options, long holds and private placements, property ledgers. You could almost hear her hangover evaporate as the zeros stacked up. The figures weren't comfortable. They were staggering, multiples beyond anything she'd ever guessed. You married a man you thought was safe and financially stable, but not ambitious. I told her, my voice even. What you actually married was someone who learned early that the best way to protect yourself is to let people underestimate you. The picture cut back to my face, and I smiled. Not the apologetic, peacekeeping grin she trained herself to expect, but something sharper, satisfied in a way that didn't ask permission. Now let me explain what's about to happen to your comfortable life. First, I went on, still calm. Let's discuss Brandon Hale and his immediate future. The screen transitioned to corporate paperwork, personnel files, internal emails, HR memos, disciplinary logs. The masthead was unmistakable: Hale and Associates, the investment firm where Brandon strutted around like the lobby was a runway. Brandon doesn't know this yet, I said, but I own a controlling interest in his company. I acquired the shares through a subsidiary about 18 months ago. The video pulled up his employment agreement. His contract includes a specific morality clause. Conduct that brings negative attention to the firm is grounds for termination. Back came the wine bar footage from the night before, this time in a clean angle that caught everything. His lean-in swagger, the smirk he tossed past Ashley's shoulder, the line where he suggested I wouldn't bother them anyway. The audio was crisp enough to transcribe. This footage, paired with documented instances of him pursuing married women at company functions, I explained over the clip, is a clear violation of Section 12.3 of his agreement. His termination paperwork was filed electronically at 8 a.m. today. Security has already cleared his office. I didn't need to see Ashley's face to know what happened next. Her hand would fly to her mouth. She always did that when the script changed without her. Brandon's job, the six-figure salary, the padded expense account, the costume closet of suits and cufflinks, gone with a couple of keystrokes. He'd be sitting on his couch right about now, staring at a termination packet, trying to reverse engineer how his perfect image fell apart overnight. But that's just the beginning, I said, and the video didn't give her time to breathe. Let's talk about your situation, Ashley. New documents filled the screen. Our joint accounts, credit card statements, and, worst of all, receipts she'd forgotten existed. The expensive dinners dropped on cards I paid off. The downtown hotel weekends she labeled girls' trips. The shopping binges that curiously overlapped with those weekends. I've covered your lies for so long, I started to wonder if you forgot you were telling them, I said, conversational as a ledger. The restaurant charges from nights you were working late. The hotels when you were allegedly with Sarah or Jenna. Once I actually looked, the patterns didn't hide for long. I could imagine the nausea tightening behind her ribs as it dawned on her. I hadn't been asleep at the wheel. I'd been taking notes. Now, about our assets, I continued, and the frames switched to legal exhibits. You'll find the prenuptial agreement we signed is comprehensive. I know you didn't read it carefully. You were too excited planning the wedding to focus on the fine print. Your attorney told you it was standard and fair. Up came the prenup, highlights bright as road paint. The lines that mattered illuminated in quiet yellow. What she'd get in a divorce, and what she wouldn't. The number landed like a dropped anvil. It wasn't nothing. It just wasn't the life she'd been rehearsing. Under the terms of our agreement, and given the documented evidence of your emotional affair and your dishonesty, I said, steady, you'll leave the marriage with exactly what you brought into it. Your personal belongings, your car, and the $50,000 that sat in your savings at the time of our wedding. $50,000. I let that sit. She'd built a routine on platinum cards and auto-drafted club dues, expenses that could swallow that figure in a season. I know this hits like a shock, I added, and for a beat my face almost softened. You built your world assuming I'd always choose peace over friction. For a long time, you were right. But people change, Ashley. They evolve. They reach a point where staying the same hurts more than changing everything. The video paused on my face. To her, I'd look like a stranger. Calculated. Strategic. Or maybe the rot came from another angle. Maybe I'd always been this man, and she'd never once bothered to learn him. Her phone would buzz right about there. I timed the segment, and her fingers would tremble on the screen, hoping there was a punchline coming, that I'd text some clumsy gotcha, that we could shove the pieces back together like nothing cracked. There wasn't. Instead of hearing from me, Ashley got a text from a number she didn't recognize. I know because it's in the carrier log. Mrs. Reed, this is Walsh and Porter. We've been retained by your husband to handle divorce proceedings. Please expect our call Monday morning to schedule your deposition. The phone slipped out of her hand and hit the rug. That was the moment the full scope landed for her. I hadn't just walked out. I had planned a controlled demolition of the life she'd been performing, and I had done it with an engineer's precision and a chess player's patience. She sat there on the couch, staring at the TV's black screen where my face had been seconds before. The USB menu showed additional files, folders she didn't open. The first video had already fractured her version of reality. Her phone rang and made her jump. Brandon's name lit the display, and despite everything, a little hope sparked. Maybe they'd figure it out together. She answered, "Ashley, what the hell is going on?" His voice carried that tight, cornered panic. "I just got fired. They said conduct violations and something about married women. Do you know anything about this?" "Jason owns your company," she said, voice cracking. "He had you fired." Silence. "Then, what do you mean he owns my company? Your husband is a financial advisor. A nobody." "He's not a nobody," she said, and even to her it sounded strange. "I don't know what he is, but he's not what I thought. This is insane. I'm calling my lawyer. You can't fire someone for talking to a married woman. There are laws, Ashley." "He has video," she cut in, words tumbling. "Us at the bar. You saying he wouldn't bother us. Me saying I never would have married him. It's all documented." Another long pause. When he spoke again, the swagger was gone. "How much footage?" "I don't know," she said. "Years, apparently." She looked at the stack of photos spread across the coffee table. "He's been watching me for 3 years, recording everything." Jesus Christ. What kind of sick? The kind who pays attention when his wife humiliates him in public. She said before she could stop herself. "Are you defending him? After what he did to my face?" She touched her cheek reflexively, then remembered his. "Your face is fine, Brandon. Bruised, not broken." "That's not the point. He attacked me." "And you were flirting with his wife right in front of him," she said, the words peeling away the story she'd been clinging to. "We both were." "Whose side are you on?" The question just sat there. 24 hours earlier, she would have said, "Mine," without thinking. Now, in a living room ringed by documents that mapped my methodical planning, she wasn't sure she had a side at all. "I have to go," she said, and hung up. The house felt impossibly quiet. Outside, a normal Saturday unspooled. Mowers, kids, dogs, like the world didn't care that hers had buckled. She looked around the living room and really saw it. Every piece of furniture had been chosen by me. The expensive couch she was sitting on. The coffee table now buried under exhibits. The art on the walls. All of it reflected my taste, my money, my quiet influence shaping what she had always called our life. She'd been living in my world while believing she was directing our world. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was her mother. "Heard about last night from Jenna's daughter. Are you handling your marriage properly? Call me." Handling her marriage properly. Like there were rules and she'd missed the memo. Maybe there were. Maybe the protocol was don't humiliate your spouse in public. Don't flirt with other men while you're wearing his ring. Don't mistake a man's kindness for weakness or his patience for stupidity. She walked into the kitchen and stared at the coffee stain where the mug had exploded earlier. I'd already cleaned the shards. The dark bloom on the hardwood remained. A permanent mark on floors I refinished 2 summers ago. She'd watch me work weekends through dust and stain while she went to yoga and brunch. She'd complained about the smell, the inconvenience, the kitchen being off limits. I apologized and worked faster to make it easier on her. She stood there and wondered when she'd become the person who complained while her husband improved their home. The doorbell rang again. Her stomach clenched. Another delivery. More evidence. She checked the peephole. A man in a suit with an official-looking folder. She opened the door halfway. "Mrs. Reed," he said, professional but not unkind. "I'm here to serve you with legal documents." Her hands shook as she signed for the service. He explained the basics. 30 days to respond. Contact an attorney as soon as possible, his tone clipped but humane. When he left, she spread the divorce packet across the kitchen counter and stared at the language that would separate a life she'd thought was untouchable into neat columns and lines. The legal language read like a machine, formal, bloodless, turning 7 years of marriage into columns for assets and boxes for signatures. No kids, no shared business. Nothing complicated except the brutal gap between our finances. As Ashley went page by page, she realized how little she'd ever known about my life. Investment accounts she'd never heard of, partnerships I'd never mentioned, and even real estate titled in her name that she couldn't remember signing for. One packet grabbed her attention, a timeline of material changes in marriage dynamics, dates, descriptions, attached evidence. It read like someone's forensic report on our decay, starting with small slights she'd long forgotten and climbing toward the wine bar scene. March 15th, 2022. Mrs. Reed publicly dismisses Mr. Reed's career advice at the Henderson dinner party, saying, "My husband thinks everyone should invest like it's 1995. June 3rd, 2022. Mrs. Reed flirts extensively with the kitchen contractor while Mr. Reed is present, including physical contact and suggestive comments about skilled hands. September 10th, 2022. At a restaurant. With Mr. Reed seated at the table, Mrs. Reed tells friends she married for stability, not passion, and will handle the passion part herself. It ran for pages, each line tied to witness notes, photos, or audio. Ashley read about herself like she was a stranger, someone who took every chance to undercut her husband. Did I really say that? Do that? The file said yes. The woman on paper looked like a caricature. Or a villain. Her phone pinged with a new text from a number she didn't recognize. The door is right there. Monday morning hit like a truck. From call logs and calendar pings, I know Ashley spent the weekend cycling from fury to disbelief. Friends suddenly busy, lawyers returning her voicemails with polite delays. Walsh and Porter, my firm, was exactly as intimidating as I wanted it to feel. She sat in reception clutching her purse, trying to project a confidence that didn't reach her hands. When they called her back, 3 attorneys waited with neat stacks. Mrs. Reed, lead counsel began without small talk. We need to discuss your response to the filing. Have you retained counsel? I'm working on it, she said, thinner than she meant. I wanted to understand what I'm dealing with first. You're dealing with a well-documented case for divorce, he said, opening a thick folder. Based on emotional infidelity and breach of marital contract. Your husband has provided extensive evidence. They walked her through it. Videos, bank records, witness statements from people she once called friends. Piece by piece, the puzzle formed a picture. One spouse performed and shaded, the other quietly documented. What are my options? She asked at the end. The attorneys traded glances. Frankly, your options are limited. The prenuptial agreement is ironclad. The evidence of emotional infidelity is overwhelming. And your husband's disclosures show assets protected before and during the marriage. I contributed, she pushed. I was a wife for 7 years. You'll receive what the prenuptial specifies for a marriage of this duration under these circumstances, counsel said. It's not generous. It is legal. She left hollowed out. 7 years reduced to a calculation that left her with less than the price of her car. At work, the whispers shadowed her. The wine bar incident turned into office folklore, each retelling bigger, messier. By lunch, it had morphed into a glossy triangle. Ashley as femme fatale, me as the wronged husband who finally snapped. I heard Brandon got fired for misconduct, Jennifer whispered during coffee. A pattern with married clients. It wasn't misconduct, Ashley said automatically, and heard how defensive it sounded. Oh, honey, I'm not judging. We've all been there, Jennifer soothed. That syrupy sympathy people use when they're choosing sides. Maybe next time, keep it more private. The whole bar saw. Private. As if the problem was only that everyone watched, not that it happened at all. Ashley's phone buzzed, social media, and her stomach dropped when she saw the tag. The tag that set everything off was time-stamped Saturday night. From the screenshots I pulled later, it was Ashley and Brandon at another bar after the ER, leaning in close, faces conspiratorial. The caption read, "Some people move fast. Hashtag Dramalama, hashtag divorce party." The comments were brutal, friends and total strangers weighing in on her marriage, her choices, her character. The story had already written itself. She was the cheating wife who'd pushed her patient husband until he finally snapped. Then one reply froze the thread. It was from Claire Donovan, someone who only ever brushed past us at work functions. Actually met Jason's girlfriend this weekend. She seems lovely, accomplished, genuine, and clearly smitten. Good for him for moving on so quickly. Girlfriend. That word did its work. Ashley clicked through to Claire's profile, hunting, and found it. Posted 2 hours earlier. A photo of me and a stunning brunette at a quiet, upscale restaurant. We were holding hands across the table, both of us honestly smiling. The woman, Sarah Martinez, was everything Ashley never tried to be. Polished without trying too hard, beautiful in a way that didn't beg for applause, looking at me like I was the most interesting thing in the room. The caption under Claire's post said, "When you meet someone who sees your worth immediately, some people just know quality when they find it." Ashley stared at that image until her eyes burned. I looked happy. Really, plainly happy, in a way she couldn't remember seeing for years. It was the same smile she fell for back in college, before she trained me to be more careful, more accommodating, more apologetic. "You okay?" Jennifer asked her at work, catching the look on Ashley's face. "Fine," Ashley lied, jamming her phone into her purse. But she wasn't fine. For the first time since the wine bar, she understood this wasn't some storm that would pass if she delivered the right apology. This was permanent, final, irreversible. I had already moved on, cleanly, completely, with someone who appreciated what she'd spent years taking for granted. The charity gala was supposed to be her chance to pose dignity. A new dress bought with money she didn't have, hair and makeup done by a pro, rehearsed talking points about conscious uncoupling and mutual respect. She didn't expect to see me there, on Sarah's arm. We walked in like we belonged together. I wore a fitted tux. She wore an elegant navy dress that probably cost more than Ashley's rent. We moved through the room without force, just easy confidence, stopping to chat with people who actually seemed happy to see us. Across the ballroom, Ashley watched as I introduced Sarah to colleagues and friends. My body language had changed, protective but not possessive, proud but not performative. I looked like a man who'd found exactly what he'd been looking for. "That's her," someone whispered near Ashley. "The wife who cheated." I heard it wasn't just one guy. "Can you blame him for moving on?" Another voice chimed in. "She's gorgeous, and apparently a financial genius. Total upgrade." Heat climbed up Ashley's neck as she realized the whispers weren't about her outfit or her poise. They were about my happiness with someone else. She'd come to salvage a reputation. Instead, she watched a replacement be welcomed into rooms that had gone cold to her. By the time the silent auction hit its stride, she'd worked through 3 glasses of wine and found just enough courage to convince herself a public confrontation was a good idea. She marched toward us at the tables, heart pounding, chin high. "Hello, Jason," she said. I turned. Surprise flickered for a heartbeat, and then I put on the polite, distant look you give a stranger in a formal room. "Ashley, I didn't expect to see you here." "It's a charity event," she said sharply. "I've always supported the arts." She shifted to Sarah with a smile that could cut glass. "And you must be the rebound." Sarah didn't flinch. She held out her hand with genuine warmth. "I'm Sarah Martinez. You must be Ashley. Jason's told me so much about you." That kindness, so simple, landed harder than any snub would have. Ashley shook her hand, thrown off by the lack of cattiness or competition. "Has he?" she asked, an edge she couldn't sand down. "I'm sure he has plenty of stories." "Only good ones," Sarah said, and meant it. "He speaks very fondly of your early years together. College sweethearts, right? That must have been a magical time." Ashley's rehearsed speech crumbled in her throat. She'd expected jealousy, proof this new thing ran on spite. Instead, Sarah felt genuinely sympathetic, as if Ashley were a cherished friend from my past, not an enemy to defeat. "Magical," Ashley echoed, weakened. "Yes, I suppose it was." I watched the exchange with a kind of detached curiosity, the way you watch 2 people discuss whether you're not standing in. When Ashley looked straight at me, searching for some glint of our old history, there wasn't anything left to find. "Well," Sarah said gently, "we should let you enjoy your evening. The auction items are wonderful this year." "Actually," Ashley said, voice edging up, "I'd like to speak with my husband privately." "Ex-husband," I corrected, quiet and even. "The papers were finalized yesterday." It hit her like a slap. "What? You didn't respond within the required window," I said. "Default judgment was entered. We're divorced, Ashley." Eyes began to collect. The room got that charged stillness you feel before a glass breaks. Ashley swayed on her heels as it clicked. While she'd been clinging to reconciliation, I'd been efficiently closing the door. "You can't just—" I needed more time to find an attorney, too. "You had 30 days, I said, not unkindly, just as a fact. 30 days. My voice stayed calm, professional, same tone I use in boardrooms. The same 30 days you spent posting photos with Brandon and telling anyone who'd listen that I'm controlling and jealous. Ashley's face flushed. She had done exactly that, spun the wine bar scene into a story where she was the wounded spouse with an unstable husband. Now those same lies made it impossible for her to claim she'd been trying to save the marriage. Ladies and gentlemen, the auctioneer's voice cut through the low hum of the ballroom. We have a special last-minute addition to tonight's auction. Ashley turned toward the stage, grateful for any escape hatch from our conversation. Mr. Jason Reed has generously offered to match the highest bid on any item this evening, with the total donation to be made in honor of his ex-wife, Ashley Reed, and her passionate support of the arts. Applause broke over the room. Ashley's mouth actually fell open. She understood it instantly. Every item she bid on, every cause she tried to champion, would be doubled, and the credit would be attached to her name. She could look like a magnanimous patron spending my money, or like a bitter ex too tight to raise a paddle. How thoughtful, Sarah murmured, and even I couldn't tell if she meant it as dry or sincere. I leaned close enough that only Ashley could hear. I told you this was only Act 1. Then I took Sarah's arm and walked us back into the crowd, leaving Ashley in the middle of the floor as people drifted toward her to gush about the generous donation in her honor. 3 months later, according to the timelines I've seen and what filtered back, Ashley sat in a studio stacked with boxes she hadn't opened. It was a long way from the brownstone, cramped, loud, a radiator that clanged at night, neighbors who tested their speakers at the worst times. The settlement was exactly what the prenup specified: $50,000, her personal belongings, and her car. No alimony. No claim on my assets. No ongoing support. The lawyers had explained it like a ledger. This is what you signed. This is what you get. Her social circle evaporated faster than she imagined. The friends who'd been supportive at first got tired of the bitterness and the looped complaints. The narrative hardened. She was the woman who tossed away a solid marriage for quick attention. Sympathy went scarce. Brandon vanished entirely after HR walked him out. His LinkedIn flipped to Portland, smaller firm, lighter title. He blocked her everywhere after she pinged him on a lonely night. The irony wasn't subtle. She'd torched a marriage chasing validation from men who disappeared the moment things got inconvenient. Against her better judgment, Ashley still followed Sarah Martinez on Instagram. She looked for proof the glow would dim. It didn't. The latest post showed me and Sarah at a company retreat, mud on our shoes, grins too wide, fresh off a tough trail. The caption: when your partner pushes you to be the best version of yourself, grateful for adventures with this amazing man. The comments stacked with hearts and congrats. One reply pinned her in place. You two are proof good people find each other eventually. Jason deserves someone who sees his worth. The implication wasn't hidden. Ashley had been the person who didn't see it. Looking back, she knew the line was probably fair. She closed the app and stared at a single photo propped on her small kitchen counter. Our honeymoon in Italy. Both of us laughing at a joke neither of us could recall now. Young and certain and uncomplicated. My arm around her waist, my face open and all in. When had she stopped seeing that man? When had kindness become weakness, patience become passivity, love become something assumed rather than cherished? The photo had survived because it lived in her jewelry box. My inventory missed it. She didn't keep it hoping I'd come back. She kept it as proof there had once been real joy. She studied her younger self. That woman had been excited to build a life with me, had seen steadiness as foundation, not limitation. Somewhere along the way she decided stability was boring, and that she deserved more attention, more excitement, more everything. The clarity hit hard. She hadn't lost me because I changed. She lost me because she did. Her phone rang, Mom on the display. How are you settling in, dear? Her mother's voice was carefully neutral. Fine. It's an adjustment, but I'm managing. Your father and I were talking, her mother said, and we think maybe it's time you considered what you want to do next. Not just where you live, what you want to do with your life. Ashley almost laughed. What she wanted was a time machine, to become again the woman who appreciated what she had instead of hunting what she lacked. I'm working on it, she said. Good. Sometimes life gives us exactly what we need, even when it isn't what we thought we wanted. After they hung up, she sat in the dimming apartment and actually considered it. Maybe this was what she needed, a full dismantling of a life built on ignoring good things. Maybe starting from almost nothing was the only way to learn what mattered. Outside, couples walked through the evening light, hands linked, voices low. Once, we were one of those couples, summer loops around the neighborhood, plans traded like secrets, the belief we had all the time in the world. Ashley set the honeymoon photo face down and started unpacking the boxes she'd avoided. If anything was going to change, she'd have to build a different version of herself, one who could someday deserve the kind of love she had tossed away. 6 blocks away, Sarah and I were finishing dinner in my downtown place, laughing about something from work, windows open to the night. Happiness spilled into the room like warm air. Nothing grand, just the easy sort you notice when you haven't felt it for a while. Life kept moving. Love kept showing up. Some people learned to recognize gold when it was in their hands. Ashley learned that lesson too late, but thoroughly. And maybe one day that understanding would be enough to build something better from the ruins she made. As she folded clothes into a small dresser, she wasn't thinking about what she'd lost so much as who she wanted to become. The woman who humiliated her husband in public was gone, buried under the weight of consequences she never thought possible. What remained was someone quieter, smaller, and far more aware of how fast everything can change when you stop paying attention to what matters. For now, that would have to be enough.